love it. I want to hear the music, though.
Listen, music is a long story. Sprint still has my phone. I upgraded today to iPhone.
Congratulations.
I know, right? I joined the true Apple world.
Yes.
And they were transferring all my data. So I was either going to be late for you in transferring my data.
You should have, because I was late for you. In fact, I'm putting my ringer off. There it is.
No, that's okay. So we actually are live. So usually I have the People of Power music, but hey, things happen. So we're all good. So welcome everyone to the People of Power Show. I am your host and creator, Kitty London, and every week I sit down with movers and shakers, CEOs, entrepreneurs, community leaders, some celebrities, and people who are doing amazing things. And I'm actually super excited, 2 reasons, because I'm sitting next to the state attorney, Dave Aronberg, but also this is the last interview for 2019. Can you believe, like, we're almost in 2020?
This is the last interview of the decade.
Yes. This one.
Wow, I'm honored. I am.
Right? So you got to raise the bar. Like you
oh, gosh.
You got to close you got to close this out well.
All right, I'll do my best. Thank you, Kitty.
And I would tell everyone to share the video. Please make sure you share. Sharing is caring. And if you have any questions or concerns, if he can answer them, he will. If he can't, we'll have to move on. But we will definitely address a lot in this probably like a half hour. We'll address a lot because he's very busy man. So I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity and my guests and the people an opportunity to sit and talk with you.
Oh no, I'm really glad we could do this, Kitty. Hopefully, it won't be the only time.
Yes.
I'd love to do it again.
Okay. Now y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that. Okay. Right. So we're gonna get right into it. Usually on the People of Power Show, I kind of do a background check, and I think it's real important because you are a public figure for people to kind of get to know you because they see you. You know, when you do maybe meetings or when you do those national things, they see you, but they don't really get to know who you are. You know, and look at he's just like, amazing. Shout out to the best boss in the nation. All right, Kiara.
Is it Kiara? Oh,
yes.
Kiara's awesome. And you know, Kiara, she's related to Devin Hester, one of my all-time favorite Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And Crystal told me to tell you hello to you. Got some
Crystal Felder?
Yes.
Oh, she's
you
amazing.
have some employees that saw you and they were like, "Oh my God, the best boss in the world." So that speaks volumes as well. And
that means so much. It really does.
And shout out for Latasha. Thank you. She's not here right now, but I had to shout her out too.
And by the way, she's not here. She's still alive. She's on
no,
vacation.
No, not like that.
We miss her, but thankfully she's doing great.
Okay, and I think a lot of people don't know, and like I said, we'll do the background, but they didn't know that you were a senator at one time.
I was a state senator for 8 years, and I had 3 terms. First year was 2 years, and I loved the job, but this job is better because you have more of an impact on people's lives here in this job. When you're in the state senate, you have a great title, senator. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, whereas very few people know what state attorney is. In fact, Florida is the only state that calls its district attorneys, DAs, state attorneys. We're the only state. Other states may call it state's attorney, but not just state attorney. So it's confusing because my jurisdiction is just Palm Beach County. It's not statewide.
Statewide, right.
But this job is better for a lot of reasons. But here's just a quick example. You know, in the state senate, I was one of 40 members of the Senate, which meant I was 1/40th of 1/2 of one of 3 branches of government.
Where's my calculator?
Right, exactly, right? So you got a great title, but you don't have really a lot of power, a lot of efficacy to change lives. Here, you have immense power because you're one of one. The governor is not my boss. The attorney general is not my boss. The people, really, the people are my
your
boss.
Okay, so people, you hear that?
Yeah, and you have a lot of power to the number one power that government has is to deprive someone of their freedom. And that very few government officials have that. And that's what this job does. So you better use that power with humility. And you better try to get it right every time because if you don't, lives can be ruined.
I was going to say it can cost people's lives. Now, I feel like just like, you know, religion, and I feel like it's a calling. What made you want to first get into politics before even this? What was the calling for you?
I just felt it, that it was something I just wanted to do. And I think it came from my grandfather, after whom I'm named. He passed away before I was born, named after him, but he was the mayor of a small town in Kentucky, and he was involved in the American Legion, and he served in the Army, and he was someone who dedicated a lot of his life to public service. And my parents are not political. They did not push me to go into politics, but I just had this innate sense I just wanted to get involved in public service, and this is the way I think I could serve best. And so I like to believe that it was just skips a generation. It's just something that the person I'm named after, it's fulfilling, his legacy.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Let me just make sure I'm not missing the comments because people getting their feelings. Shanitra Moore says, hello, Mr. Aronberg. Thank you for attending the 7th annual calendar unveiling.
Shanitra is awesome, and also we are new friends on Facebook.
Oh, so you are on Facebook?
Yes, I have 2 pages. I have the Friends page, and I have this political page. But the Friends page, they limit it to 5,000.
Yes,
so,
and you're popular, of course.
Well, well, in politics, it's easy to get 5,000. But Shanitra and I are now officially Facebook friends.
Okay,
That's
Shanitra.
a bond that lasts forever.
Okay, well, congratulations. So we're going to get into some of the questions because like I said, know you're limited of time. And I want to make sure that we get to some key questions, especially in Palm Beach County. Number 1 question. We got to talk about the opioid addiction. It's an epidemic. We hear about it, but I don't know if we really know the severity of it and the sober homes and things like that. So what's going on with that with you?
130 people will die in the United States of opioids, not just drugs, just opioids. And it's like the equivalent of a 737 crashing every day. I mean, it's something that is an unprecedented man-made epidemic. It's terrible because this was not inevitable. It was preventable, and it was created by some irresponsible corporations who were throwing these very unsafe products.
Somebody said they loved you.
Oh, thank you. But this corporate malfeasance by throwing these unsafe products onto the market, labeling them as safe and non-addictive when it was neither. And now you have millions of Americans to this day addicted to opioids. And the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces. And that's why the lawsuits against the opioid manufacturers and distributors are so important. But it's also important to hold accountable those who caused this crisis. And very few people have been held accountable criminally. So what we're doing is taking a part of the crisis. I've been working in this area since 2001 when I investigated a company called Purdue Pharma, the makers of OxyContin. But in this job as state attorney, what we have done, we've taken a national lead, is that we have gone after the fraud and abuse in the drug treatment and sober home industries. The corruption that preys upon people trying to recover from substance use disorder. And instead, they get them involved in something called the Florida Shuffle, which keeps them in an unending cycle of relapse over recovery until that person leaves Florida in an ambulance or a body bag.
Wow.
And so we have taken the lead nationally. We cleaned up much of the sober home and drug treatment industry in this county, and other counties around the country have reached out to us to find out how we did it. Because in 2018, in part because of our efforts, we had a 40% decrease in the opioid overdose deaths in Palm Beach County.
Wow.
Which is something
still have more work to do, but that's still tremendous. A dent.
It's a real major dent. It exceeded the national trends, and we're making a difference. But now we're fighting a war against fentanyl. Fentanyl is way more potent than even heroin, and we're starting to see the death rate tick back up because there are fewer overdoses. But now when they overdose, they're overdosing on fentanyl, which will kill you in greater numbers than any other opioid we've seen before. Wow.
So you got to start out. It says, tell Dave, Ray Whitley says, hello. Okay, what about the crack epidemic and people who still suffer from the policies around the wars on drugs?
Ray is awesome. That's someone we met during the Corey Jones case, and he's a real community leader, and he's right to ask about that because you had uneven drug laws. You had laws when it came to powder cocaine being lighter than crack cocaine. One targeted the white community, one targeting the African American community, and the drug that was devastating the African American community was treated, as far as penalties, much more harshly. So you had all these users, not just dealers, users locked up for many years with mandatory minimums. Opioids, we're dealing with it differently. We are trying to hold accountable the manufacturers, distributors, and the dealers, but the users we're treating with rehabilitation as opposed to mandatory minimums. Now, Ray is right, though, that the crack epidemic, that was something that, so we are trying to apply the lessons of opioids to other drugs, too. That if you have a drug problem, that we want to seek help for you. If you're a drug dealer, we want to lock you up. And that's why we have drug courts, we have veterans courts, we have all these types of specialty treatment courts. The difference between those courts and the other courts we know about is that the focus is treatment rather than incarceration.
Great. So it's rehabilitation.
Exactly.
I like it.
Exactly. And one of the great things about this job is that I, as state attorney, I get to help get to set the priorities for law enforcement in this community, at least in our office. I get to set the priorities. I don't have to ask the governor for permission. I say, look, if I want to, for example, make sure a priority is to ensure that felons, returning citizens get voting rights back, I can make that a priority. If I want to make sure it's shutting down rogue sober homes, I make that a priority. And that's why I love doing interviews like this, because I can hear from people in the community to decide what our priorities should be.
I had like 30 segues just now in what you said. Well, I'm going to start off with the first one, because I think, again, this interview too is to educate people, because you are going for re-election next year in 2020. And I think sometimes we just don't know what people in office are supposed to do. So can you kind of just educate people who really don't know what a state attorney actually does?
Right. Well, you watch Law and Order?
No, my husband does.
Okay. I'm the second half of the TV show. So, right? So that's the best way to explain it. So I'm the chief prosecutor of the county. It's considered the chief law enforcement officer of the county.
Okay.
But, the sheriff and I, we work very well together. He is, he does the investigations, and then we do the prosecutions.
Gotcha.
So we have police all over the county that if a crime is committed, they will investigate, and then they'll turn over to us to decide whether to prosecute. We are a separate pair of eyes. So although we work with law enforcement, we're not the same as the police, because there's sometimes we disagree. We will get a case from the police and we'll say, no, not enough evidence, or no, it looks like you violated the rights of the suspect, and so we won't file that case. And so we are, we protect who we think would be the wrongfully accused. We stand up for victims of crime, and we hold accountable those who commit crimes. And although we work closely with police and have so much respect for law enforcement and the jobs they do, but when even police cross a line and commit crimes, we have to prosecute them as well. Wow. And we have.
And I think a lot of people may not know that, and that's the thing. Sometimes that is that stigma that everybody works together.
Right. There is a view that, hey, you're just guys are all in cahoots with each other. And so that's why when you remember the tragic case of Corey Jones.
Yes, unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, when he was killed, people said, well, you're just going to cover up for the police. We said, no, we're a separate pair of eyes. We do justice for the community, and we investigated. And there were some who thought, well, the investigation was going on very long, and they thought there was a cover-up. But the reason why the investigation took so long was because we only have one shot to get it right. And if we acted too soon, you jeopardize the entire case. You have to make sure you get all the evidence and your ducks in a row, because you don't get a second bite at the apple, because it's called double jeopardy. And the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution prevents people from being prosecuted twice for the same crime.
So if you jump the gun too soon. And I think I'm glad that you're actually telling this, because a lot of times, especially with that case being so drawn out, a lot of people were upset. And I'm sure you probably had to walk around with this thing on your shoulder thinking, oh my gosh, I know we're trying, but the public is like upset at us.
Not only are you right that not only do we have to take our time, but I'm not even allowed to talk about pending cases. So while it's going on, people are not hearing from me in public. They're thinking that, he's silent and it's taking forever, i.e. cover up. But that's not what was happening, as you know. And that's why the one thing, because of people like Ray and other people in the community, they trusted me and our office. They knew the people of our office are here to do the right thing, and they trusted us to do the right thing in the end, and we did.
You did.
Because in other communities, you don't see that trust, and you see devastating results because of it.
Let me just make sure I didn't miss a question. Melissa St. Ford, why did it take opioid epidemic to address the effects on drugs on people?
It's an interesting question, because remember, we're talking about this as a national issue, and even to this day, I don't think that from a national perspective that every community is treating drugs on people the same way we are. Remember, I was elected in 2012, so I started in 2013, and when I got elected, I said that I don't want to lead with incarceration for nonviolent drug offenders. I want to lead with rehabilitation for nonviolent drug users. Drug dealers are businessmen, and they need to be locked up. But when it comes to users, so I think it's whoever you elect as your law enforcement officers, meaning state attorneys, who are all elected across the country. And that's why something you and I were talking about earlier was that when people vote, they vote for president and governor, and they may not know what goes on down the ticket.
And that's the most impactful people, your local, like your commissioners, your mayors. your state attorneys.
Exactly. So that's what really affects your life. When you have a question about your school issues, your education, your school board really matters, but people don't necessarily know who their school board members are. When you have a question about drugs and crime, well, who you elect as your state attorney matters, but they may not know who that is. But they always know who's the president and the governor, and yet those offices don't necessarily have as much impact upon your daily life than we do.
And that's correct. And I think what happened, and I'm not, and please hopefully correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, but I think, there were people wondering, because opioids seem to affect, I'm not saying not as much African Americans. I don't really know the statistics on that.
It didn't. You're right.
Okay. But I guess when they had the crack epidemic, it really destroyed a lot of black families. So now it's like, okay, now it's opioids where we're talking. So that would segue into my next question. When you have some African Americans, maybe some or all, that feel that there's an injustice in the court system. How does that make you feel holding this office?
Well, I'm aware of the history of our criminal justice system. I'm not blind to it. And Melissa's right when she says, hold on, you have the crack epidemic, which was treated harshly, like they locked people up with huge mandatory minimums. And then when it comes to opioids, which has been largely a white epidemic, although that's changing, unfortunately. You're seeing now, it's equal opportunity. Now it's like everyone.
Oh, yes.
Which and when I say unfortunately, I mean that unfortunately it's spreading to all groups. But and when you say opioids, which was largely white, all of a sudden, you're treating that with kid gloves. I think, though, part of it is also the realization that the war on drugs leading with incarceration has not worked, and we need a different approach. And that's why you see more veterans courts and drug treatment courts and all these other specialty treatment courts out there. We didn't have them back during the height of the war on drugs. And as far as attitudes towards the criminal justice system, it goes back to the Corey Jones case. When we were dealing with that tragedy, there was a lot of mistrust. But I think cases like that show that no one is above the law. That if you can get that message into the community, that goes a long way.
It was like finally Palm Beach County got it right, because you hear all the national stories that seem to quote unquote may have gotten it wrong, and then now we got justice as far as people being, because it's always like this police against civilians. It's always okay. They're going to back them up. They're going to be right, but then in this case, justice was served.
Yep. And I worked with. When I was a state senator, I worked with people like Bobby Powell and Mac Bernard and leaders of the African American community, Al Jaquette, all these leaders of the community who knew me and knew that, when they went to the community, that hey, you can trust Dave. That I'm sorry to even refer to myself in the third person. I'm putting myself in someone else's voice, but they knew that I wasn't going to be there to try to cover anything up. We were just going to do it right, and the fact that we were taking a while and remaining silent was just part of the job. It was just the job of doing it right.
But then, I'm glad you said that, because I think that kind of helps now. People say, okay, I get it a little bit better now, because before, people were infuriated. They felt like this case was just going to be just swept under the rug, like most cases. And a lot of times, in the court system, the longer sometimes the case takes, sometimes it seems like that helps the other person who's guilty, because it's like, okay, people are going to forget about it. It's going to be swept under the rug. Time passes.
Memories fade.
It's harder to convict. Right.
It's true.
It's harder to convict.
Yeah, but it is important that the people who represent you have real life experiences that understand that you don't have this job in a vacuum. You don't just show up on day one and are unaware of the history of the African American experience with the criminal justice system. I'm being white, obviously I don't have that same experience, but at least you have to be aware of the realities of history, and that's why I made sure that I go out into the community. I go to churches and I go to community events to let people see me before it's election time.
Yes, I'm happy, and I even said that because we're sitting in 2019, and yes, you're going for election 2020, but I really felt it was important for viewers to get to know you, besides just going into a ballot and seeing Dave Aronberg. What is he? What does he represent? Who is he? Yeah.
Right.
Now we don't have an excuse. That's one of Mr. Mika. Do you feel like mental health is a reason why our community is going to drugs instead of help from others?
Yeah, mental health has been a big issue for me, because I believe that you wouldn't see nearly as much of the crime we see every day in this office if we properly dealt with mental health treatment. But when our state refuses to accept Medicaid expansion, we leave people without any help, any treatment. And now we have the Jerome Golden Center closing down, which was one of the only mental health treatment centers in our county. And that could devastate us. We need to treat mental illness for what it is. It's a brain disease, and there's a stigma attached to it. But what happens is if they don't get the meds, if they don't get treatment, we're going to see them in our criminal justice system. And do you know who the largest mental health provider is in our county? It's the sheriff. It's the county jail. They are the largest mental health provider in our county. And it shows that it's undertreated because you want them to be treated before they get to jail, not after.
Right, not after.
And sometimes it's just as simple as getting them on their meds. Meds are very powerful and effective. But you see a lot of people...
the right way, when they use the right way.
Right, yes. But then they get off their meds or they don't have money for them, and now they're committing crimes in the streets. So that needs to be improved in one area. People want solutions. Except the Medicaid expansion that this legislature continues to reject every year that other states have. Other states are taking our money and they're spending it on their people. Florida should do the same.
Wow, I like it. Okay, insurance, wow. So we're going to talk about Amendment 4 is a big one. Gosh, it's a big one. So you've been I've seen some news things about you and how passionate you are about Amendment 4 and things. So can you kind of just let us know a little bit about your take on it?
Sure. Well, I was a big proponent of Amendment 4, a big supporter. For years, I've always supported the concept that we make our community safer if you allow returning citizens who have paid their debt to society to re-enter society instead of being part of a permanent underclass where they're told that no matter what they do, they will never be equal ever again. It's hard to tell someone that there is no hope in their life and then expect them to remain lawful, tax-abiding citizens.
Correct.
Right? Because people act voluntarily in compliance with the law because they believe that there's equal justice under the law and that tomorrow will be better than today.
Tasha just checked in. And Crystal. Oh my God.
Wow.
They came in like
Hey, Tosh, on vacation. She checked. Hey, Crystal, we miss you. My big brother's awesome. Brother from another mother.
Right?
I love Tosh. But, that's why I just always believe that it was just the right thing to do, the moral thing to do, and it's best for public safety to let people back in the system.
Because like you said, I mean, it's kind of like a badge of honor. I'm getting my rights back. Yeah, I did crime. I did the time, but now I want to be normal. I want people to look at me equally.
Exactly.
But now... there's this thing that people are getting upset because I don't know. There's a confusion in it now. It's like, okay, I get my voters' rights back, or do I have to pay? And all it's a lot right now going on.
So what happened is the legislature tried to undermine the will of the voters. The voters passed Amendment 4 with 2/3 of the vote, nearly 2/3, and the legislature then went up there and said, well, let's slow it down because they didn't want the returning citizens to vote so easily, and so they passed a bill that said you have to pay all your court costs and fees before you can register to vote. This is in addition to your restitution and your fines. We're talking about court costs and fees. And a lot of people just couldn't afford to pay it. And then when they can't pay it soon, then it compounds with interest. And now you're facing thousands of dollars in court costs and fees. And to vote, you have to pay that off according to the legislature. But to some, that just amounts to a poll tax.
Right.
And to me, that seemed unfair, that your inability to pay court costs and fees should not prevent you from voting. And so what we did here in this county is that we said, all right, we're going to go back to everyone who was sentenced for a felony, other than, by the way, murders and rapists are not included in Amendment 4. That's separate. They're not included. But for everyone else who's a returning citizen, we're going to go back and we're going to, if they wish to vote, we're going to go back and we're going to change their sentence to separate the costs and fees from their sentence. They still owe it, but it won't be a part of their sentence to prevent them from voting.
Wow.
So they can register to vote, still owe the costs and fees, but it's not going to keep you from registering to vote. And I'm proud of that because I despise voter suppression. I believe every vote should count, and we should let every citizen who's eligible to vote, vote. And when the voters passed Amendment 4, they wanted returning citizens to be eligible to vote. And so we're hoping this will happen because the courts will have the final say. But we're moving ahead until the courts tell us otherwise.
Okay. Do you know how long it'll take maybe to hear the final?
Well, we're pushing ahead anyways.
Oh, okay.
So until the courts, so it's happening right now. So
okay,
one of the things,
because people...
we want the word to get out because there has not been a lot of people to take advantage of this yet because I think the word has not gotten out yet.
Okay, great. Let me just make sure. Yeah. Crystal says, hey, Dave, tell him Crystal from Domestic Violence Unit, love Mr. Crew. Crystal, he knows
Crystal
who you are.
Felder, I love you. You're awesome.
Oh, yeah, she said miss you too.
She's amazing.
Sure. Ray to the low. Hello, Ray Low. Just just checking in. So I want to make sure that we got everything out. If you missed some, we talked about the opioid epidemic. We talked about, of course, Amendment 4, a little bit about the Corey Jones case, a little bit about a background. And again, he's going for re-election. I want to make sure my viewers were able to actually kind of sit down like I am, and if you have any questions to get to know who he is. I mean, we hear great things from the people that work for you, but I want to make sure that everybody gets to know, how they say you're worthy to be praised and all that,
so nice.
And all that good stuff. So let me just make sure I want to miss anything here. Another thing too, what is the biggest myth about your profession? I know a lot of people may have different.
The biggest myth is that we're just here to convict people.
That just sounded funny.
Well, because the job of prosecutor is not necessarily to convict in every case, it's to do justice.
Okay.
And that sometimes means that if we find evidence that is proof of innocence, that we have an obligation to release it. We can't just, look at our one loss record and claim that's a success. We have to justify our success by how we do justice. And sometimes that means not always convicting. Sometimes that means clearing people. And that's why we are starting a conviction integrity unit here. It's in the works. We're going to announce it sometime soon,
now.
2020. Yeah, well, we're working on it. It's going to happen because there could be some people currently incarcerated who are innocent, and we're going to let them file some paperwork with us to then have us review their cases. So we're going to do that. Yeah, there are 3 other circuits in the state doing this, and I want us to do it as well. But there's a lot of legwork on it, so we're working on it to make it happen early next year.
But I mean, that sounds hopeful though for people that are sitting in prison right now and maybe thinking I was overcharged or maybe wrongly convicted. I don't know, but you hear about these cases. It's crazy. Like you hear about people getting sentenced for 25 years and didn't do it.
Well, if that's the case, we need to know about that, because this is different than the person who says, "Hey, I had a bad lawyer," we want to go with people who are. We want to help people who are innocent. We want to stand up for the wrongly accused. Right. So if you're innocent, that's what the Conviction Integrity Unit will be about. And so that's and that means holding accountable those who commit crimes, protecting public safety in our community, but it also means standing up for the wrongly accused.
I like it. Raylo, it says, even when I was labeled, even the I was labeled, I was a gang member, giant meth, LOL. I think that he has done a great job. I do follow politics. Okay. Please read my comment. So that's, and Raylo, let me just he's very vocal. I'll just say that. I love Raylo, but he's very vocal. So for him to tell you that you're doing a good job, if he didn't feel that way, he wouldn't have said that.
Well, thank you.
So I just want to just let you know. I love advocating, Crystal, for victims of DV. We did more than just convict people. We help people too. And like I said, we try to break barriers, and People of Power shows are really committed to doing that, because a lot of times as a community, we do a lot of assumption. We don't know, and that's why I wanted you to tell what a state attorney does. So when we get to, you don't, I can say, how do you grade a politician when you don't really even know the duty of a politician?
Yeah, well, that's why it's important, right? It's important to know what every job description entails. Correct. And some people call me, they said, hey, I need your advice on a matter. I'm having a dispute with my neighbor over, a plant or something. I said, well, I got time. I'm an attorney, but I'm state attorney, which means I deal with criminal law, prosecutions, and I don't deal with civil stuff. So if you're disputing, you have a family, some people say, hey, I'm going through a divorce, what do I do? Like, that's not my job description. Oh, yeah, I get called for everything.
I guess because you're the state attorney, so you're the attorney of the state, no matter what it is.
So people think, hey, you're the state attorney, so you can answer my, and I'd love to help, but actually by law, I'm not allowed to give legal advice because of this job. And so I always direct people to a proper lawyer to do that. But as far as doing justice, as Crystal said, we have some great people in our office who just are amazing. Crystal, the folks in our office, they give up their time because they want to help people. And it's what she did in domestic violence was that taking calls from victims of domestic violence, trying to help them just to get their life back. I mean, amazing. And sometimes the stories you hear just will make you not want to go to work the next morning. But you got to persevere and keep doing it because you believe in the cause.
Mike Albritton says we love DA.
Oh my gosh! Thank you. Well, that Albritton is awesome, and his wife is DA. Yeah. That's why we call each other DA. Denise is his wife, DA. Mm-hmm. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And I think Brian Fernandez is a go-getter. I do applaud him too.
Hey, thank you, Ray.
All right. Well, I guess so far, what has been your biggest accomplishment? What can you say if you could sum something up?
Well, I think if you look at it, I think the 40% decrease in opioid overdose deaths, to me, it's hard to find a more significant accomplishments, because 40% decrease in deaths, that's hundreds of lives that we help save.
Correct.
And that's why you look at, we've done some good things, but to be able to look back and say, because of our task force, our Sober Homes Task Force, there were hundreds of lives that are still alive today that otherwise would not be, hundreds of families that are not destroyed and devastated permanently because of that work. I mean, it's hard to beat that.
That's true. I mean, when you're saving lives, that's excellent. But I wanted to make sure that, because you've done so much, and I mean, I'm sure your job is not easy at all. You got a lot on your shoulders every day. Fighting justice and getting all these people that need you and feel like things are going this way and that way. And I want to thank you for keeping at least a cool head about it.
Katie, I love this job. I'm grateful for the opportunity to serve. I know it's not automatic. Even though I ran unopposed in 2016, I know that,
it's like nobody wanted that job.
Right? You're right.
It's either two ways you can look at that. Either you're super good, it's like, no, let them have it.
Or no one wants it.
Right, nobody wants it too much. Denzel says, glad you're interviewing Dave. He is a great person. And I was just telling him, it's ending. This is my last interview for 2019, but I think this is a very crucial and important interview going into 2020, because there's a lot of things that still need to have work, but for people to kind of go into 2020 with a different viewpoint. And well, this is good. I'm just grateful to be in this community, because I think there's a level of trust that the community has with our office, and you don't always see that in other places, and I want to build on that. And I know you're only as good as your last case, and so that's why you never take it for granted. I don't want to get complacent. I know that we still have the power to destroy lives, and that's why we have to treat it with humility. And as long as we have great people like Crystal, who, I would love her to come back, Latasha, who's still here, who's amazing, right.
Alexia Cox, and so many others, I know that we'll keep doing the right thing. I want to thank you, though, Kitty, for having me on, because this is an important show, your last show of the decade.
Yeah, last show of the decade. People of Power, last show of the decade, yes.
And I'm hoping that we can make it more of a frequent thing, because, there will always be tough questions from the community, and I want to be available and accessible. The only time when I can't speak out is if it's a pending case.
Correct.
I have to remain quiet for at least that period. But I never want the public to feel that I'm inaccessible. Or hard to reach.
That's good. And People of Power likes to give, especially people in your, I would say, powerful seats. I like to do that because, in no disrespect to the media, because they do their job, but the People of Power is a little different, because you're in the hot seat, but you're calm and collective. You get to answer questions that you may not be able to say on a news channel, because they only give you so much time, and so much time, and they do snippets and little bites, and they're there to sell the media.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm not here to sell the story. I want to get the story,
right.
and I want to get it from the horse's mouth in the way you do it. So I'm not trying to sell sound bites to get views. This is the real deal here, live. So let me just tell you, Douglas Alexander Lawson says, hello, Kitty and Dave Aronberg. Dave, keep up the good work, Commissioner Lawson. Keep up the good work. I know it's not easy, but I'm very proud of your efforts.
Thank you. And don't forget, Ray Lowe said, go fly, girl.
Yeah,
so, okay, just make sure.
Yeah, that was for me, right?
Doug Lawson is such a great guy. He is a newly elected commissioner over Riviera Beach, and he's a friend. And, that was another thing. When, all the issues are going on Riviera Beach, it says a lot about that community. That community took care of a lot of the issues in the city on their own. Doug is doing a great job.
Yes, he is. Definitely. The team leader who gave us justice on Corey, yes. And we talked about that earlier. So again, I ask everyone, please, if you're viewing, I always say this, sharing is caring. And I think that we need to spread the word. So when you hear the name Dave Aronberg, you can actually go back to this video and kind of get to know who he is. And I've gotten a better sense. I met you once, now twice maybe in public, but now I feel like, hey, I see you. I feel the energy, and I think that you're a great guy.
Thank you.
you can only do so much. You're only one person. And that's another thing, too. How can the community help you?
Well, the community can do things like this. Participating in a live chat, that means a lot, that people care enough. It's a tough time. This is like in the middle of the day. And
right.
People are on live asking questions, making comments. That's so nice. And also, a great way to do it is to participate, is to vote, is to be out there and get engaged in politics and government and their city, and know that what goes on locally is so crucial. When you go out there, just don't pay attention to the national races. Look to see who's your state attorney, your school board member, your sheriff, state legislators, mayors. It matters a great deal. And I'm just grateful. Look, they don't have to do anything for me. It's my job as a public servant to do something for them.
Right, I understand. Okay, see, that was a good answer. Tessie Watt says, I interned with the state attorney's office many years ago, and the attorneys were instrumental in my leadership growth. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Tessie. That's really nice.
So we know that you're Cookie Aronberg. It was not able to join us today. Cookie
is my beloved basset hound. I adopted her from Big Dog Ranch Rescue in, 2012.
Okay.
And she rescued me. She changed my life, and it made me into a dog person and someone who is involved with animal rescue. And when there's an animal cruelty case, I go to court myself on it. I will go and prosecute those cases myself because.
Wow.
Yeah, because they can't speak up for themselves, and they depend on us, and the laws are still so weak when it comes to animal cruelty that I just thought, hey, if they see the state attorney in the courtroom, maybe the judge will, and the community will realize this is more important than the law says it is, because the law is pretty much, just let them out, and I said, no, people need to be held accountable, not just because it's animal cruelty, which is awful, but also because it is a link. It's been proven. You start with animals, then you move to domestic violence, and then you move to more, even you move to people are domestic violence. You move to domestic violence, and then you move to manslaughter and murder. There's a link between violence against animals and violence against people.
You're right. They start us like doing lizards and little stuff you hear about little kids, and and then they're murderers.
They have no respect for life, and then that just is like a gateway to having no respect for other people.
Well, you are on the People of Power Show, so you are a lifetime member of the People of Power Show. So anything that your office needs from me, let me know, because I want to definitely, stay in touch and keep this connection going.
Yeah.
So people do have access to you. Mr. Aronberg, keep getting the real bottom of things. Oh, he keeps getting the real bottom of things and keeps helping Palm Beach County with the issues at hand. And I'm an animal softie too. Please prosecute
the animal.
Please prosecute the animal abuser. So, being on the People of Power Show, like I said, you're a lifetime member now. I just want to again thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I want to make sure we covered everything that you felt that we needed to cover. I know I snuck some questions in there, but I just my people will be like, why didn't you ask him about? So I had to do it.
There's one question that we closed on, which I thought was just funny because I don't have an answer to. It's like when you, I saw it on your list and
your superpower.
Yes. What?
Oh, well, I love you. Well, we got it
because I don't have an answer to that one. I was like, I don't have a superpower.
Tammy says the Glades love Dave.
Oh yeah, Tammy, thank you. I used to represent the Glades in the state senate, and I haven't forgotten about it.
All your peeps are checking in right now.
Oh, this is so great. Thank you, Tammy. So the question was, what is your superpower?
Yeah. So basically, what I do. This is what I do. Okay. So I'll reword it a little different for you. So because you're on the People of Power Show, you're powerful. Okay. So people who are powerful, I feel, can give away a superpower. So if you could give away a superpower to the people who are watching, what would the superpower be? It's
just find happiness in just even the smallest thing. I just there's so much. Like even if I know that I'm going to see Cookie when I get home today, I'm looking forward to it. Or today I'm going to have a meeting where I'm going to make an important decision that, and you look forward to like even things that you just, may think, oh, it's just mundane. It's just typical. No. I think that's, if there's anything, I don't think it's a superpower. It's just that I love living life so much that I'll take something that just seems to be, regular and make it into something that's exciting. Like,
So you make something ordinary extraordinary.
Yeah, because you look forward to it and you
Right.
love going through it as it is, and that's why I think it's important to live a purpose-driven life, because you need to have some purpose in your life. Even if that purpose isn't totally clear in the long run, you can make it a short-term purpose, and that makes life so much better. Yeah.
Okay, I love it. Find happiness in the smallest things.
Exactly.
Love it.
Exactly.
All right. Well, again, listen, I don't want to, because I was in the meter. So even though I'm sitting with a state attorney, I don't think that the police will be even listening to me. You're like, listen, don't give me a ticket. I was sitting with Dave. Dave, I need you to fix this ticket for me, but I won't use him like that. But
our office is a wonderful place, but unfortunately, there's no free parking.
Right. I know, right?
Sorry.
So the meter, let me
It's
just
the
make
county.
sure. Okay, yeah. So we're getting ready to run out of time, but again, thank you so much. This is, like I said, the last interview for 2019 for People of Power. Of course, 2020 is going to be amazing, explosive, some great people lined up in the works. So I just want to say thank you, State Attorney Dave Aronberg. He is the top of the top when it comes to his office is beautiful. So he's prestigious and powerful. He know it. His office is huge. Anyway.
No, you're very kind.
All right.
Thank you. I saw Crystal wrote something. Thank you, Crystal. And,
Yes.
and thank you, Kitty, for having me on.
You're welcome. All right. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.